UFC 235 in the books from T-Mobile Arena. Adam Hill, Heidi Fang here with you, and another wild night of fights. It always is, it seems, when Jon Jones is in action. It always is when the UFC is at T-Mobile Arena. Jon Jones retains the belt. The challenge really wasn't from Anthony Smith, though, in this fight. A crazy, crazy title defense for Jon Jones.
Yeah, I think Anthony Smith's biggest challenge was coming out swinging and fighting something mental going on in his head. I wasn't expecting that from him. He was saying all ahead of the fight that wasn't going to be the case with him, but it seemed like it was, because he just couldn't get the motor running against Jon Jones, and Jones goes on with a dominant performance amid some controversy.
Yeah, some controversy in the fourth round. Jon Jones did land a knee to a downed Anthony Smith. Smith was down. Herb Dean's looking at the replay. They're trying to determine whether it was intentional and whether it was illegal. It was illegal. It was intentional, but Anthony Smith continues. Otherwise, Jon Jones could have lost the belt right there. Jon Jones' only loss of his career was a disqualification in 2009 in a somewhat similar situation.
Yeah, those 12-6 elbows, and that was a Matt Hamill fight. I remember that one very clearly because it just sticks out in his career if you look at his win-loss record, and in many people's opinion, I think it's the consensus that it was not a loss, but same case scenario could have happened here. Anthony Smith, of course, being a bigger man, like you said, not taking the DQ as a win just to have the belt.
Yeah, he said he wanted to win the belt, not steal it, and so he continues in the fight. He loses. Could have won if he just stayed down and said he couldn't fight. So a very, very fortunate title defense for Jon Jones, even though he was dominant throughout. Also dominant throughout was the challenger in the co-main event. Kamaru Usman comes in and absolutely dominates Tyron Woodley in every aspect of the game. What an unbelievable performance by Kamaru Usman, now the first African-born champion in UFC history.
And yet again, another case where we didn't see the opponent get going. Tyron Woodley said it himself that he just wasn't there. He couldn't pull the trigger tonight. He says, Kamaru was just the better opponent. He gave him credit where credit was due, so class act there. But I would like to see that fight again. I just can't explain what happened with Tyron. He was dominated throughout, and that's not what we've ever seen from him as a performer in the octagon.
Yeah, certainly an odd performance from Tyron Woodley. Just did not have it, was not able to stop takedowns from Kamaru Usman, and we've seen Tyron Woodley be a dominant wrestler throughout his run as champion and throughout his entire MMA career. Kind of a weird fight, and it was also a weird fight just before that. Ben Askren, his long-awaited UFC debut, undefeated Ben Askren, former Bellator and ONE FC champion, and now he comes into the UFC. He gets rocked early, slammed, and punches landed all over the place by Robbie Lawler. Askren recovers, and then he gets a bulldog choke kind of in. We're not really sure. It looks like maybe for a moment Robbie Lawler's arm might have gone limp. Robbie Lawler said, "I wasn't even in a choke. I was fine." But Herb Dean decides to step in and stop the fight. A lot of controversy in that one.
Yeah, it definitely did look like his arm was down. And in fact, the NAC executive director, Bob Bennett, he came in to try to kind of explain that the safety of the fighters is in their hands, and the referees have a litany of things that happen during a fight that they have to look out for to be able to protect the fighters. Now, I did see a screenshot on Twitter of Robbie Lawler putting the thumbs up just as Herb Dean is tapping his arm, but from our vantage point, it did look like it was limp, like you said, and once that happens, you really have to take into account whether or not he should continue, even if he did wake up in that moment.
Yeah, so a lot to talk about coming out of this. The UFC says they will rebook that fight with Askren and Lawler because the ending was very controversial. Askren said he doesn't want that fight, so we'll see a showdown already between Ben Askren and Dana White. That was something a lot of people expected. A ton of breakout performances on this card as well. You can read all about that at reviewjournal.com. Thanks for joining us and finding out what happened at UFC 235, and keep it locked at reviewjournal.com for all of the information you need to know from the world of the UFC. From UFC 235, Heidi Fang, Adam Hill, from here at T-Mobile Arena. We'll talk to you guys again soon.